Jim
Welcome
Rooney.
to Coach's Corner, everybody. Thanks for watching the show. I'm your host, Coach Tripp, along with my buddy Bill Pendock to my left, my old teammate at Liverpool below him, his teammate at Syracuse, Blaze Winter, part of the four-wheel drive, half of the four-wheel drive, and Timmy Green and Jamie Kimmel make up the other four. We got a special guest, Jim Rooney. Dog, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Good to see you guys.
Woo, woo, woo.
Wow. All right. Jimmy was oh, thanks for getting my dog going, Titus. You heard the bark. All right, Jimmy, let's start from the beginning, man. You grew up in a small coal town in Pennsylvania. Talk about your mom and dad and growing up in that environment.
We grew up in Monterey City, Pennsylvania. It's a small coal region town full of row homes. You know, now they call them townhouses. We called them row homes, and you know, about 10 or 14 feet wide, and you know, they're all kind of lined up together. And grew up down there and absolutely loved it. It's a big football area, no question. Football is culturally very important. And got recruited out of there by George O'Leary. And I blocked for a guy who at that time broke the Pennsylvania state rushing record that was held by Tony Dorsett and Matt Suey. But his record has been passed by quite a few times since then by a couple guys that actually went to SU.
Mike Tracy, right? The guy's name is Mike Tracy.
Yep. So blocked for him, and was actually played, you know, like most of these guys, played both ways. Was actually a little bit better on offense, but got recruited to play defense. I mean, 6 foot 230. You know, there's not much of a place for a guy that size on a D1 offensive line. But then, you know, I come to Syracuse, and little did I know, hindsight's 2020. You get like 4 NFL guys in front of me. I didn't know that at the time. So there's no place for me. You know, we got the four-wheel drive, and a year before that with them was Mike Charles. So you had a bunch of NFL guys. So I came to Syracuse and got moved to inside linebacker, which I never played before. Got caught up there, and never saw a lot of action, but played real hard on scout team, and loved playing scout team. But got my head dinged up the spring of my junior year going into my senior year, and got knocked out on the field from a subdural hematoma. And what ended up happening with that, a week and a half earlier, I got a couple concussions, and I was kept out by the training staff. But I really didn't say anything for a couple of days, because if I would have said something how bad it really was, I wouldn't have, you know, I would have been taken out completely. So to try to get time, I just kind of dealt with the pain at night. And the next time they put me on the field, literally the subdural hematoma took over, and I actually had to have a major surgery to get it taken out over at Krause.
Wow.
You almost
go ahead,
Bill.
Billy.
I want to point out, I mean, Roon's talking about the story as if it was just another hit on the field. Now, what the people don't understand is, he was I think it's called clinically dead on the football.
That's correct.
I mean, and everybody remembers that Damar Hamlin, the situation in Buffalo, and they made it was a big deal, and this went on without even a hitch. Nobody even flicked an eyelash at it, but it was very tense time for us when we were up there at the university.
Wow.
Yes, it was. Bill, you're very accurate.
Roon Dog, 2001. I think because of you almost dying on the field, you received Mike and Judy Zunick Award for courage in recovering from a life-threatening head injury. Talk about that award and that foundation and that.
Well, it was it was very meaningful because I didn't experience the football glory like some of the other guys here did. Okay, playing in the NFL, I was, you look on an SU sideline and there's a lot of all-state players there that aren't playing at all, and I felt like I got kind of lost, in the shuffle, and nobody really cared. Uh, but so when I did get that award, it was very meaningful to me that gee, somebody really did kind of remember me. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it.
Role players. Role players. Everybody has role players, and they're just as important. Let me read something about role players that Jim Rooney was in Roon Dog, and then we'll talk about players that don't play all the time, or scholarship guys, or all-state guys that never end up playing. Let's talk about this. What is the importance of players having a role on the team? How many starters are role players? Does everyone have a role on the team, and does every player understand their role? These are some of the questions that we're going to try to answer today on Four Wheel Drive. Every sport has role players. I don't care if it's volleyball, basketball, baseball, hockey, football, it doesn't matter. It's the coach's job to fit the kid's talents to a role or roles. One player may have 3 or 4 roles. A coach needs to evaluate what each player does well and fit his talents to a specific job or task. A coach should not put a player in a position that he's not suited for his athletic or mental capabilities. The second job, each player has to accept responsibility for that role. A player should never be forced into a system. A system should be adapted to fit the player's skills. Okay? Now, let's go to the last part. In order to get the players to accept the role, I used to tell them when I was coaching, every calling is great when greatly pursued. Everyone has a calling, a task, a job, a role to fill. If every piece of the puzzle comes together and we're all in, we're going to be successful. But you must explain to each player what their roles are, what you expect of them, and hold them accountable to the team. I recall what the great Alabama quarterback Bart Starr remembered about what his Green Bay Packer coach Vince Lombardi said concerning roles. He said, quote, Lombardi explained that some of the players on the team are going to be Bell All-Stars and popular, and some of them are going to be obscure. But everyone was equally important. For us to succeed, we have to place our personal goals behind those of the team. We have to pick each other up and push each other to higher levels, unquote. So there are 2 important tasks for a head coach. Number 1, put the players in the right positions and roles and get them to accept and embrace their role on the team. If you can do both of these things, you're going to be successful. Okay, now it's time for Bible Verse of the Week, brought to you by the Seiler Agency. This week's Word of God comes from Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 10. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it well with all your might, unquote. And finally, there's a poem with
praise
the same
God.
theme. Hang on. Finally, there's a poem with the same theme. If a task is once begun, never leave until it's done. Be the labor great or small. Do it well or not at all. Let's talk about roles, Room Dog. How did your role at Syracuse have an effect on your great business career?
Well, you just got to keep plugging, and you got to realize that you're not going to win every down. Okay, you're not going to win every fight. All right, but you come back. And like regarding football, one of the important things is you got to love the game. Okay, even if you're not on the field. Okay, playing now. I think it's completely different nowadays. I don't know how they even practice.
Right.
They just do shell stuff and choreograph things with these great athletes, and more power to them. But I don't know how practice in that environment would be any fun. If you like, guys like Billy or Blaze, you enjoyed that hitting. You enjoyed that part of the game. I was the same way, not at their level, but you got to enjoy it. So to really buy into it, it's not just going through the motions, but in loving the game.
Yep, and you got to make sure the backups are just as important as the starters. Blazer?
Yeah.
What I saw when we stepped on the field is I saw at Syracuse players that fought what their role was. And that wasn't healthy to the rest of the team. There was always going to be someone feeling bad about, well, I want to play here and I'm better than him. The one thing about Jim Rooney, is he accepted a lot of this. And Dale, as a competitive person, you don't want to accept anything but first.
Right.
And he wasn't recruited to accept third or second or fourth. But he was a humble, grounded man, understanding the big picture. And the big picture called him to play a role that was extremely important to Billy's survival, my survival, Jamie, Tim. I mean, a lot of us rely upon these silent heroes to blend, the team together. And that's the beauty of what Jim brought to me, was he blended people. He was a humble human being, how he presented himself on the field.
You got your master's at Syracuse in public administration. And then you became, for 11 years, defense logistic contractor, 25 years as an Auntie Anne's Award winner. Talk about getting your master's, getting these job contracts, and we're going to get to the two most important years of your life in Afghanistan. So talk all about that, Room Dog.
Okay. Came out of, after getting my bachelor's, being on the team and all, I stayed there and got my master's from the Maxwell School. I found it very enjoyable, and I didn't have football anymore, and I missed it. So I would go down to weight room once in a while, but I enjoyed that part of studying more than I did in undergrad, because you could stay more focused. You didn't have football, which was really your passion. So then went to Washington, D.C. for a number of years working. It's a federal agency called the Defense Logistics Agency. That's a common buyer for the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Okay, so did that for 11 years without going into an awful lot of detail. Then my then wife and I also began having some Auntie Anne's pretzel franchises, and I really learned the difference about owning your own business versus working for somebody else, and how difficult it is. So did that for a number of years.
Goddamn good pretzels, Paulie.
Yes, and that was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. And then I went back to the government in 2008, and I'm just retiring now, 2025. But during that part of it, I went to Afghanistan as a civilian 3 times.
Wow. What was so special about your time spent? Was it giving back to others? Was it helping needy, the military? What made those 2 years?
Well, first of all, I give all praise and glory to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Okay, that is the ultimate. And if you see this shirt I have on, it says "Get out of the boat." It's basically what the Lord said to Peter. Basically get out of the boat and trust him.
Trust him, right?
And don't trust your own stuff. I know you guys were talking before, but I'm the created. I'm not the creator. Okay, I'm the created. So he knows a lot more than I do.
Beautiful.
So I need to trust him. So that is the essence of my life. That and my wife now, Melissa. But the Afghanistan thing was very rewarding because I got to see the good that we were doing there. Okay, because all you heard were the bad stories, but there were a lot of anecdotal, small level stories of success that people had in helping the people there. And people, most people don't realize, at one time we had 100,000 people there, okay, civilians and military. And the civilians play a big role in supporting the military, but we, are subject to not as much as the military, but to some of the same situations as far as security and dangerous aspects of the whole deployment. So uh, that was very valuable, and most people don't realize, like, how we all grew up with World War II movies, and you have like the corporal or the private scooping beans or whatever. That's not the way war is done nowadays. Okay, uh, contractors do all that. Okay, they do the base life support. If you're supporting 100,000 people, they're not all trigger pullers. Okay, they're not all
Right.
doing that. So we were the government agencies that manages the contractors who provide for the life support of the military.
Wow. Wow. Thanks for your service, Jim Roon Dog. Unbelievable. You
Got to
talked
meet a
about
lot
your
of the Afghan people, and a lot of the Afghan people I still keep in touch with. Um, and it's been very rewarding. So
yeah. Yeah, well, Bernard King. Let's talk about his Bible fellowship. You're involved with that. We had him on our show, man, and that's important. Billy and when Billy and Blaze and I talked about that when I came down South Alabama, there are a lot of Christians down there, man. A lot more than I saw up north, and it had an influence on me in my life. And talk about a little bit about Bernard King and his Bible fellowship.
Well, Bernard King and Glenn Moore were involved with it was called Campus Bible Fellowship through Paul Jewell, um,
Yeah.
and I got involved with them just because they showed such passion for the Word of God, for seeking an authority besides what you come up with in your own mind.
Right.
We all have our versions of God, what we want him to be, but that's nothing more than that. It's our version. Okay. So what Bernard and Glenn were into is seeking a God that comes from uh, uh, that you learn from the Bible, a source beyond ourself and things that we think of ourself. I always, like I said before, we're the created, we're not the creators. So we have to really develop our opinions by what's in the Bible, in my opinion, as opposed to just things we come up with ourselves. That's being our own God.
Right, absolutely, brother, absolutely. All right, I got a few more questions. Do you guys have some questions for him? I got a couple more.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Jim. I always find it interesting to find out what stayed the same from the first day you stepped on Coin Field and were a Syracuse Irishman. What stayed the same as you fast forward to the time now you're dealing with warfare? What was the same thread that people could tell? Oh yeah, that's Jim. That's Jim Rooney.
Yeah,
That's a great question, Blaze. I'll tell you what stayed the same. I didn't realize that. Um, Again, I didn't see the glory that you guys had on the football field, but we ran, a couple of convoys from a place, if you look on the map, called Spin Boldak, up to Kandahar, and was involved with a couple of convoys going from place to place to serve these different forward operating bases, and just the idea of being in that convoy with the green suiters, with the military. Okay, most of the time civilians were supposed to travel by helicopter, but we couldn't get out. The sandstorms were too much and I'm
Wow.
saying you can be down for like 2 weeks. But
Wow.
on the convoy, being in there with some of these guys, and some of the guys were a couple times were let's just say secret squirrels. And I got the same adrenaline rush, Blaze. To your
Yeah.
point, I
Yeah.
got the same adrenaline rush. I'm
Yup.
like, yeah, I'm finally in the game again.
Yeah.
I'm finally in the game, and I got the same adrenaline rush being there with those guys. That
Wow.
same type of feeling. So
Beautiful. Well said.
yes,
Great question. Great question, Blaze. Even better answer, man. You're in the game. You're not one of those critics on the sidelines. Oh my
yes.
gosh, talk about in the game. The great speech by Theodore Roosevelt. Billy, you got a question for Rune Dog?
I got a lot of questions for Rune.
Okay.
First of all, Rune, now, Paulie, you got to understand, Rune is really subdued on the show. He gets fired right up, boy.
Yeah.
I want to see that. I want to see that fired up Rune Dog. Back in school. Blaze, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I do, yes.
Yes.
Now, first question I got to ask Rune: Where did you get that Sergeant Carter haircut? Did that come from military?
I actually did get it up on the 174th on the base because that's where we're officially stationed now. So I actually did get it on a military base.
Now,
You like that, don't you?
Next question. We're going to make it real quick. Rune, what's your favorite season of the year? He's right next to you, so say it.
Winter. Winter. Hey, Paulie, can I tell you a story about Blaze?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you a story about Blaze.
Nice.
You look at Blaze right now, Blaze is a real handsome man right now. Okay?
Yeah, you're right.
He's a good looking fella. He should be in magazines or something. Okay? But back in the day, let's just say Blaze got better looking as he got older. But one of the things about Blaze,
Nice that money.
Blaze, do you remember that big fur coat you used to wear?
Oh yeah, I still have it.
Yes, Paulie. Blaze used to wear this big fur coat, and then he had the scraggly hair and the beard. Okay, the scraggly hair and the beard, and this big fur coat, and he walked real straight. This guy going against the quad and the quad. Okay, the little kids the students used to say, "Winter is coming. Winter is coming." Okay,
Like
they
a
were
Viking.
afraid. And he used to live up on the top of Skytop, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had that fur coat on there. They might have got reports of a Bigfoot sighting. That's what he looked like. I mean, it looked like a monster. And Blaze, you remember that coat?
A big
Jimmy, I'm gonna
animal,
wear
man, like a Viking with the beard, the hair, and the fur.
Oh yeah.
You're like a
Trip,
Viking.
I'm gonna wear that on the next show. I promise you, I'm gonna wear that. You'll have to watch, Jimmy.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
Oh yeah, that coat. I mean, honestly, he was a scary looking dude.
Yeah, I definitely looked the part. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you got to look good to feel good. You got to feel good to play good. You got to play good to be good.
But seriously, we were so worried about Jimmy Tripp. We were so worried about him.
Yeah.
I mean, he had some major problems, between the ears. He went through a lot. And at times you would talk to him, you really were concerned that he would never go on to live such an amazing life that he has lived.
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, it's so amazing that Rune Dog has won the Commander's Award for Civilian Service awarded by the Army in 2016 and 17. Yes, and the 2010 Secretary of Defense Medal for the Global War on Terrorism. Rune Dog, talk about those two awards and how you got those.
Well, most of them are just for being in support of the services, being over there, being in theater, living life, next to some of the military guys at times, and a lot of other great civilians. But one of the things you learn to appreciate about the military, that's a little bit different from what all of us went through at SU. things on the field are tough. We used to beat the crap out of each other.
Right.
But when it's over, okay, you go back to a nice bedroom. You have good food, and don't get me wrong, they serve the military good food most times. But there's also situations where you're going days without sleep. Going on a stay over in a place, in a bunk bed. When I was there, with three lower and NCOs that were a lot younger than me, and getting the top bunk, already having had two hip surgeries. Okay, those type of situations that that 24/7 mentality of how they get beat up, and
Mhm.
how tough it is going without sleep. Okay, not because they got hit in the head like we all did, but going without sleep, long plane rides, going in and out of theater.
Oh,
Right.
Okay,
Right.
being around the
Whoa.
same people all the time, which you love
Yeah.
those guys,
Right.
and uh,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's why
Whoa. It's hell.
a lot of them get, it's the PTSD, in my opinion, is from the battles, but it's also from being pulled away from your unit, from the guys that you love. It's like when you guys don't have football anymore, it's very difficult, because you don't have that same locker room, that same spirit of corps is gone.
Right. Right.
Okay, and
absolutely.
the military experiences that all the time, and
Right.
it's very tough on them.
Yeah, they get the same injuries. The ball players
Yes.
too. CTE is bad, and concussions are an issue in the military.
Oh,
You know,
blasts. Yes.
yeah, we're gonna talk about that one show. We're gonna pick a show. As a matter of fact, I know Fossil. A friend of mine knows Fossil's wife. She wrote a book on CTE because her husband committed suicide. But we're gonna talk more about it later. All right, two things I wanted to point out in this interview or in this show, Jimmy, is you said one, you had to love the game to be a great teammate. I agree so much. In the military, affiliation and the love and the passion for it is the same as football, and it gave you that same thing. My dad was in World War II, and when I got out of football, I was too old to get in the military. But yeah, I always respected those guys and the guys that support them. So hats off to you, Rune Dog.
And if I had to do it over, guys, honestly, realizing my natural ability, okay, I my father wanted me to go to West Point. Okay, I didn't have Tim Green grades, but I had good enough grades to get in there. Okay,
Wow. Yeah.
okay, because of football. And my father wanted me to go to West Point, but I chose to be a small fish in a big pond. And if I had to do it over, I would have thought about that more
Yeah.
seriously.
Oh
And
yeah.
and I'm
Yeah. That military, I'm sure you guys have thought about military. My dad in World War II, him and I were real close. He was the best man at my wedding. He was my best friend for years. And he always told me, you'd have been a great soldier. And it was the best compliment anybody could
yeah.
give somebody. I
Yeah.
thought my father told me that. But you guys have any closing comments on Rune Dog?
I got another question I want to ask Ruin. Talk a little bit about, digressing a minute. I've been fortunate enough to, be close to Ruin throughout after college and be around the same area. And I've been able to travel back to Pennsylvania with him for the past 15 years. I go home with him a bunch of times. I've made friendships with guys down there. I've made, coaches, players, and it's the culture down there, as opposed to up here, New York State, is like night and day. I mean, the friendships I have down there and these are people that
Yep.
Ruin has introduced me to, and there's a number of them. And I just wanted to kind of ask Ruin, what's the biggest cultural difference from in football and friendships from Pennsylvania when you went there and you're still going there to where we are up here in New York State?
I don't know. I mean, my particular group, we kind of bonded around football. Okay, football was the common element between myself and a lot of my friends, and it wasn't like a my high school versus your high school. Okay, it was more of a common bond between guys that played football and lifted weights. Okay, lifting weights was, it's just what you do. Okay, it's not like just something for the Blaze Winner of the world or Bill Pendock, who have all great natural ability. Everybody just did it, and we kind of bonded around that. Bonded around, maybe some things that wouldn't be, great to talk about here.
Few
You know,
cold beers.
yeah, as far as the, alcohol and all, but uh, that was just the way it was.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
we bonded in high school too, all over stuff we shouldn't have been bonding over.
yeah. But Paul, can I tell you, I want to thank you for giving the time to CTE, because since I had that massive head injury, I've gone through periods of being depression, clinical depression. Okay, where and I don't know. I'm severely unorganized from maybe it's just me, but I think part of it is, like my spatial relations don't keep up with my language skills. That's one part of the brain versus the other, and I don't know which one is which. But I had a study done that was from the head injury, and I appreciate you giving the CTE and the whole. So there's an awareness out there, and it's not just NFL guys that get it. It could be high school guys.
Absolutely. It could be military. I mean, it could be
Yep.
anybody that gets repeated head injuries. Because I've talked about it on the show, Rune Dog. You may not know, but my old teammate at Alabama, Benny Perrin, committed suicide with CTE. I had six DBs. I only played 1 year in the NFL. And we had 6 DBs in Tampa, and I know 2 of them that committed suicide before they were 40 years old. Junior Seau. I don't have to explain anymore to Blaze. Junior Seau was his friend and his teammate, and he could see what it did to him.
What I want to add into here, I believe it's critically important to have what Billy's always tried to teach me, what Jim Rooney's always represented, and Tripp has given to all of us a platform.
Yes.
A platform to share and realize that we're not alone in our emptiness. We're not alone in our current, I always say it as the warm red stuff running down your face. I miss the warm red stuff running down my face.
Yes.
And when we're together, you realize that you almost want to reach up and touch and say, my God, it's still there. I'm so thankful.
Yeah. We were thankful. We sacrifices were many. You guys sacrifice your bodies. You guys sacrifice your body and emotional and mental, to have those bonds. I'm so blessed and so grateful. I have my issues, but I don't have nearly the issues that a lot of my teammates do. So I think about them, I pray for them, and we're going to talk more about it. We've covered it in a couple subjects here, but we're going to get. I would love to get Dr. Bennett Amalu on the show and see how close they are to discovering CTE in living people and patients, because that has to be done after they're dead in the morgue or in the autopsy. But I mean, it's an issue, and actually, my good friend and my first roommate at Alabama, both walk-ons at Alabama, Preston Gothard, 4 years with the Steelers. He sat next to Mike Webster his last few years. And Mike Webster was the first person that was diagnosed with CTE from Dr. Bennett Amalu. So, we'll have to get Preston on the show, and he's quite a treat. But Room Dog, man, thanks so much. We're so proud of you. One last question. Who would be great to have on the show, Room Dog?
Oh, boy. I'm thinking of guys that are probably have already been on the show. Maybe George Mangiacaro.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. George Mangiacaro would be awesome to have on. If anybody knows Pete Holohan's number, call me. send me a text. I'm trying to get Pete Holohan on because what an athlete he was. Thanks, Rune Dog, man. We're proud of you. Thank you for coming on,
guys.
Rune, thanks for doing it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot,
I'll
guys.
talk to you, Bill.
All right, Blazer, I'll talk to you.
Yes.
Good seeing you, Blaze.
God bless
Wear
you
that
guys.
coat.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Oh my gosh, that was awesome, man. Jim Rooney, great story. Never a starter, never a Bell All-Star, but just as important. Went through a traumatic head injury, survived, and now he's a platform for doing good in the world, man. Won a lot of awards. Was really he kept in the game, never gave up. What a great story. I want to thank everybody for watching the show. Have a super sports weekend, everybody. Let's see if I can get to my spots. Here we go. So on.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
That's you trying to fix the plumbing yourself to save a few bucks. Doing things yourself doesn't always end well. The same goes for insurance. That's why Auto Owners works with local independent agents who tailor coverage to meet your needs and offer discounts for life, home, car, and business insurance. Because sometimes you need a professional to get the job done right. That's simple human sense.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray, and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
75 years of service in high tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than a simple painted brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
My name is Steve Reynolds. I'm the manager and owner of Cordova Lanes, and we help keep your mind out of the gutter. Cordova Lanes is part of the community of Pensacola. Being here for 43 years, we've entertained for a living. Cordova Lanes is located at 2111 Airport Boulevard in Pensacola, behind Cordova Mall. Come on out and see us at Cordova Lanes Bowling Center. Thank you.